Wanna ride with me, catch a vibe with me, go get out with me, yeah. Shawty, I'm a riding G, I'm a dying piece, I'm a ride with me.
In this video, we're going to use the Tobii Eye Tracker 5 to do a cold and dark start in the F-14, the F-16, the F-18, the AV-8B Harrier, the A-10C Warthog, the JF-17, the 2000C Mirage, and the Viggen. If you found this video helpful or useful or entertaining, please consider subscribing. I really appreciate all subscriptions. You can also like the video. The main aim and goal of this video is to show you the Tobii Eye Tracker 5. I may use the incorrect brevity or do the incorrect procedure, but that's not the goal or aim of this video. At the end of the video, I'll show you all my settings for the Tobii Eye Tracker 5. I'll also do some air-to-air refueling, and I'll do an ACLS carrier landing with the F-14 Tomcat. So let's get started. If you're brand new to DCS, I highly recommend you go for the module you're most interested in as your first. Otherwise, consider the F-14B Tomcat, the F-18C Hornet, or the A-10C tank killer. Why do I choose the Tomcat over the Hornet? Well, just look at the interior. Now, as of the 18th of the 2nd, February 2021, there are many cold and dark start videos, but not many done with the Tobii Eye Tracker 5. So that's what we're going to show you here today. Now the F-14 Tomcat has one great advantage, and that is you can put two people in it in multiplayer. So if you're just learning the module, you don't have to worry about all of the controls at once. And if you've got a friend, they can help you with the front while you fly and also give you assistance. The flight model is also awesome, and it's a great way to start and learn how to fly. It really is something different from Microsoft Flight Simulator, so if you've never seen DCS Digital Combat Simulator, this module could be a great place to start. This view is from the Rio in the rear of the F-14 Tomcat. So this is the F-14, and we're going to do a cold and dark start with a Tobii Eye Tracker 5. First thing I'm going to do is bring up the menu. We're going to put on the ground power. Bring up the menu again, and then I'm going to put on the air supply. Once that's done, we're going to look down here on the left hand side. We've got a switch here, left and right. We're going to right click once to put it onto the right hand side. Then we're going to left click here once to release that, and left click once to release that. This is for the wings. We're going to move it all the way forward and then right click. And then we're going to left click once to close the cover. Here is our flight controls, right click, and right click, so they're all forward. And back down here we've got an oxygen button, left click once and that's all. Now right behind us is the ejection sheet. We're just kind of hold down left shift and E on the keyboard, and that will hit that button for us without us having to turn around. Down here we're just going to right click so it's on transmit receive, and then we're going to left click once to put it onto manual, and then right click to put it onto main, and this will be our radio. We can also tell that it's in pilot control at the moment on the TACAN. Now we can go over to here. We've got standby. We're just going to hold down the right mouse button, keep it held down until that word standby disappears. Then we're going to go over to here. It should have clicked off now, so left click once to put it onto the left hand side for left engine, and that will start that process. We'll go down to here. We've got three buttons, right click, and right click. And then we're in takeoff mode, but what we want to also do is TID. We want to change this to down, so it should be in that position. One left click and it will put it onto TID. We can bring up that. If you need to talk to Jester, you can hold down A on the keyboard and it'll bring up this menu, but Jester's not ready for us just at the moment, so we will do something else. Now we're going to go over to here. We need to have this changed to both engines. One left mouse button click and that's done. We're going to go up to here, just switch all of these around. So right click, and then right click. Just under here, we're going to left click once to put it onto the white flood and the red flood. And we're going to turn on all of these. So right click, and right click. Now if you want it to flash and you've got anti-collision on, it will not flash. So if you want it to flash, you need to have anti-collision off and then it will flash like this. Otherwise, you can put it onto steady and then put anti-collision on and you can have both of them on at once. So if you want it to flash, turn that to off and then put it onto flash, and that's what we're going to do just at the moment. Jester's busy at the back. You can see how far he's gone with the alignment by looking here. So this little triangle needs to get all the way to the end, and then the alignment will be complete. It will also give you a number here, 5. When it gets to 100, it is complete. So that's the other way we can know. If this has disappeared on you, left click in the middle of the screen, you'll notice it goes red, left click again, and it comes back. You've also got a little switch here, so if you look up here, you'll notice this is green. If you left click once here, it'll go red. And you can make it go back to green by left clicking again. So that's how we can bring that back as well. We're just waiting for the alignment. I'm going to show you the full process with the alignment. Our parking brake is here at the moment, so we left click that once if we need to release the parking brake. You can put this here onto override so that while we're on the ground it will keep moving the fuel amongst all the stations left and right. So it's just an override mode at the moment. Over here is our autopilot. Now if you're getting Jester and you're finding him really annoying, this switch back here you can actually turn down. So if you turn this all the way down, that turns off Jester. You don't have to go into the Jester menu. So I'm just going to bring up the Jester menu now, and we're going to go and tell him to do left control and 5. So he'll get busy with that. But we'll turn him back up a little bit. You can also turn down these two if they get annoying, the Sidewinder sounds and also your missile sounds. Now you need to know what you've got set for this to control your wings. So this here we need to bring out. So I'm just going to push it up now so that it goes to 20. If you're wondering what that control is, let's go have a look. That control is called wing sweep forward and wing sweep aft in the control. So wing sweep forward and wing sweep aft. And then that will control this. So you can see our wings are out. The next thing we need to do is bring our flaps down. So there's a couple of ways we can do it. We can push F on the keyboard, or we can get here and we drag this all the way down. That's the flaps, that's the physical flaps. You'll notice over here, our flaps are now down. So that's all good. We're mostly just waiting for the alignment now from Jester. We're at around about 31, 32. We can see our hydraulic pressure down here. This is our nozzles at the rear. So that's how big these are. We're at 4 at the moment. Or they're not, there's the 1. No, they're at 5, so they're all the way open at the moment. Our RPMs. And you can keep an eye on your fuel over here. Once you're up in the sky, we can change this to whatever setting we need. I won't talk about the ILS or the ACL, but we will do that a little bit later in the video. But with this startup, we won't look at that just at the moment. There is a declutter button. You can right click that once if you want to get rid of all the information up here. And you can turn that off again and you can see it comes back. I'll just show you a little bit what it's like when you're looking around. You can turn on the maps by just left clicking here for the mirrors, or M on the keyboard, and you'll notice they come up. And you can push M on the keyboard and it goes away again. Now to do your nose wheel steering, you can push N on the keyboard. So you'll notice up here there'll be nose wheel steering when I push it. So there you go. Nose wheel steering engaged. And if I push it again, it goes away. So we're just waiting for this. We can see the condition of our flaps by looking here. So we know if the flaps are in or out just by looking here. We can also see if our gear is down with these three. And we can also see if our speed brake is in or out. So if you push B on the keyboard, you'll notice the speed brake will come out. Push B on the keyboard again and the speed brake will go in. We can push delete on the keyboard just to bring our joystick back. It looks like we're almost ready. Jester will say we're ready to taxi. And we will begin moving. So we're going to release that parking brake by left clicking here once. I'm going to check that we've got nose wheel steering on by looking up here. We don't have nose wheel steering on, so N on the keyboard, but nose wheel steering on. We're also going to go over to here to the master reset button, left click that once or twice, and you'll notice it will get rid of all our warnings. And then we're ready to move. So let's give it a little bit of throttle. Hold down X on the keyboard to spin us around. And then I'm just going to bring the throttle back to neutral. And we're done. So then he's going to tell us we need to kneel down. So what he's talking about is over here. We want to go into kneel. So we're going to right click this once and the plane is going to go down. You can see it's kneeling. And down comes this arm. He's going to put that arm in place. Now we just need to throttle forwards once he runs off. And it will clip in. And we're done there. So now the next step is just to throttle up. So we want to throttle up until the throttle is around about just under 10. If we go over 10, we don't need that because we'll go into afterburner. So we want to throttle up just to under 10. Around about there will do. You can adjust the trim if you need. Now we just need to release. So he's telling us to get up to speed, but we are up to speed with the throttle. So now we just need to salute. So left, shift and U on the keyboard and it will salute. You can see these guys doing their commands and it will launch us. Push G on the keyboard for the gear to bring the gear in. and then left shift and F on the keyboard to bring the flaps in. And we'll have a little look. We can see the flaps are in and the gear are in. Now we can bring the wings out a little bit if we need. We'll bring it down to 40 and we are away safely. Try and keep it under 500 altitude, but at the moment we are safely away. Welcome back. So we're going to do a cold and dark start in the AV-8B Harrier with the Tobii Eye Tracker 5. First thing we've got to do is remove the wheel chocks. So bring up the menu, F8, F4 and F2. We'll just wait for them to be removed. They're gone, so let's jump into playing with F1. First thing we need to do is look down on the right panel and we're turning on the battery with one right click. Then we're going over to the left hand side. Up here we've got to hit one switch to DC/DS on with the right mouse button, this yellow bar with the left mouse button, and this one here for the oxygen, right click. Then we're going up here for the fuel pumps, right click and right click. Now we've done all that, we'll go back over to this side, we'll just right click once for the engine start. We'll go back over to here, we can turn on the outside lights of these switches. Right click and right click. And just underneath here, we're going to click this once. We can also spin this around for the formation lights. Now we can close the canopy with left control and see canopy is closed. Now there's a little button just underneath the throttle here, so you need to hover around about this location. It should say throttle cutoff lever, not parking brake, we need throttle cutoff lever. Once you found that, left click once, or you could set it just to a button on your HOTAS. And then move the throttle forward. It should move forward a little bit, but not go very far. Now, we're going to go up to here. We're going to click left down here for the STOL. We're going to right click once here for the flaps. They should show 25. And we're going to right click once here to put the H2O to take off. We're going to spin these around. One brightness, two brightnesses, three brightnesses over here for the right. And down here we've got another one where it says brightness, spin that around. So we've done those four. Just behind the joystick we've got INS. We're going to right click once to put it on the SCA. And that is done. Now we're going to go through this part of the panel. These are all the interior lights, so we're just going to spin these around. Brightness, 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 and brightness. We can probably turn down the floodlight just a little bit. Now back here, we're going to hit this large panel and this one left click mouse button on that. Now we're going to go over to here and we're going to look at that EHSD, left click that once, and you should see now that this timer is going along. It'll go up to about 8 minutes. We're going to click on this, master caution, just to send that away. And we've done most of what we need to get the plane going. A few more things. We can turn up this. We can put this onto AUT and we can put this onto standby. Now you'll notice there's a map here. To get that so we can have the original screen, left click once in the middle, and then over on the right hand side there's the word map, left click once there, and that will bring us back to this. So we're just waiting for the INS at the moment. You can see all the buttons we've clicked just to go through it again while we're waiting. We clicked on this to put it up into the up mode so it's on. We put that in the downward position, the fuel shut off lever, and we put on the oxygen to on OXY. We turned on all our lights. If you're wondering what extra I clicked, it was just under here, this switch here. I put that on, and then I've pushed the 2 fuel pumps forward. Now, just down here is an interesting switch. This is going to stop nozzles from going too far back. So we want to put this around about 60. So now it's covering the 60, and that'll be fine. So just to give you an idea, there's 60 there, and you can just push it to there, and that'll be fine for our takeoff. This is for the autopilot. And then we went up to here, we right clicked once, we left click once here. This was for the flaps. This is putting it into the STOL, and then this is for the water. We've put it into takeoff mode. You can skip this just for takeoff. We haven't got much of a load, but for the moment we're going to leave that on. We closed the canopy, of course, with left control and C, and then we turned on our brightness. So we turned up that, 2, 3, and just underneath here there's a 4th one. We turned that one up to get the I and S working, which it says it's doing at the moment. We went behind the joystick, and just behind it here we've got SEA. We put it into SEA. While we're over here we can turn on the DMT. And then just down here we've got our interior lights, so we've turned up all of these. Now what we're waiting for is around about 8 minutes or 3 minutes. Here we go, it says it's okay and we're all good. So we can now progress to the next stage. Let's have a little look at our plane outside. Just going to give the plane a little bit of throttle, and you'll notice the plane will start moving. There should be a parking brake underneath here. We'll just get rid of the parking brake. There we go. Now to turn this, we can use Z and X on the keyboard, so you can see how it turns. But if you use nose wheel steering, you'll notice up here there'll be another word which says nose wheel steering high. So if I hold down nose wheel steering now, it can turn much more sharply. So if we show you that, I hold down nose wheel steering, and then have a look at how hard it can turn around. So this is really good for the carrier deck because it will allow us to move around a lot easier. And we're just going to line ourselves up. This is plenty far enough. Now we don't want to be using high nose wheel steering when we're actually taking off, but we also just want to make sure it's level before we hit the brakes and get ready. So we'll stop there. We're just going to get rid of our warning. Make sure that you are not too heavy. At the moment we've got pretty much an empty plane, so we don't have any problem there, but if you are carrying a large amount of bombs or fuel, you will need to consider that. Now at this point we can get ourselves ready to take off. So what we're going to do is just give the plane a little bit of throttle, then we're going to release the brakes, and then as we get towards the end or the launching point down there, we're going to change this all the way up. Now it will only go so far because we've already set it here, so we don't have to worry about that. We just need to know what our commands are to change the nozzle. To show you that, you would need to push this button, nozzle rotation up and nozzle rotation down. You need to know what they are in your commands. So if we have a look on the outside of the plane, it's going to shift this here basically, nozzle rotation down and then nozzle rotation up. Just for starting, we're going to make sure we've got this nozzle around about 20, just below 20, and then we're good to go. So let's get ourselves up and off into the air. Once we've taken off, we can then slowly push that forwards back towards 0, and we can bring the gear up. We'll also hit this switch to put it back to off, and we'll also go down to here and put this back to off. And this will also go to auto. So there's some of the things that are going to happen very soon. Let's give it a go. So we're giving the plane just a little bit of throttle. Then we're releasing the throttle, giving it full throttle. Then we're going to move those nozzles. And you can see we've taken off. G on the keyboard to bring that gear in immediately. And then we're just going to go down to here. We're going to change this to off. We're going to change this to auto. We're going to change that to off. Then we're going to bring those nozzles forward. Down to 20. We can see our speed up there, 150, 160, so we're gaining speed. Once we're above about 200, we should be good to push it all the way to 0. We can turn off our master warning. We can bring our flaps in, and we're pretty good. We're flying successfully away. We'll have one last look around the cockpit. And you can see we've done all of this with the Tobii Eye Tracker 5. This is the F-16, and we are going to do a cold and dark start with the Tobii Eye Tracker 5. First thing we're going to do is go down to here, right click once to put it onto battery, and then go up to here. We're going to change this jet fuel to the start position. While we're also looking over here, back here we've got probe heat. We're going to right click once to click that upwards. Over here we've got IFF. We're going to right click so it's on norm. Down here we've got external lights. We're going to switch this all the way around to norm. We're going to put this onto steady with one left mouse button click, and these two we're going to right click for bright and bright. Now we're going to close the canopy, left control and C on the keyboard. You'll notice the canopy will come down and close. As it's closed, we're now going to click on this big yellow bar here. So one left mouse button click and that's done. We'll zoom in for a second. Down here is the word power, left click that once. Then we're going to go through buttons here. We're going to right click, and right click. We're going to put this onto manual and we're done. We're going to left click once here for the ejection seat. Then we're going to go up to here. We've got SYM. We're going to hold down the left mouse button and scroll all the way up. Now, over here, we're going to hold down right shift and home on the keyboard, and it will unlock this throttle. Meanwhile, we can go back over to here on the right hand side. Now if you're having difficulty, you can push the backspace button on the keyboard and you can see it a lot easier. We're going to right click, and then we're going to right click twice for this one. This one here, we're going to left click twice until it's in the off position. These are all the internal lights. Just hold down left mouse button and scroll it up. Hold down left mouse button, scroll it up, and that will do all of those. Then all the way back here, we're going to turn some of these switches around. So we're going to right click, then we've got two more, right click, and then we'll turn this on with one right click for the MIDS LVT. This last one here doesn't need to be turned on, but this here does. This is the INS. You can either put it into stored heading or norm. I'm going to right click once so it's on stored heading. Now we're going to go back over to here. We've got our main power, which you can see. Just right click once and that will switch that through to main power. You can have a little look around the system. Up here we've got this locked, so hover above this with the mouse wheel and just scroll it upwards a little bit and that will unlock that. If you want to make this brighter, you can scroll above this and just use the mouse scroll wheel and it will move it upwards. Now you'll notice we've got a master caution and you'll have an electricity system warning here. Go down to here, it says caution reset, left click that once. And you'll notice that there's no longer any warning. So that will solve that one. Next we're going to keep an eye on our INS. So waiting for this number, the 6564, to go down to 10. So we're waiting for that, get down to 10, and then we can begin our process of moving. What we can do though first is turn on our taxi lights, one left click on the taxi light. We haven't got any stores on our plane today, but if you are carrying a heavy load, you put it on Cat 3. I've got an empty plane pretty much, so we're just on Cat 1 at the moment. Everything else there looks fine. So we're just waiting on the INS now. We can bring our joystick back with the delete button on the keyboard. And we are almost ready to go. So we've now got 10. You'll notice it's in two places. It'll say up here and flashing a line. And it'll also have over here ready, and it'll have the number 10. When that is done, go down to here, and we're just going to move this switch, right click and right click until it is on nav, NAV. Now what we need to do is put on the nose wheel steering. If you push S on the keyboard, it'll bring up your nose wheel steering, and then we just need to give the plane a little bit of power. We'll slowly taxi along. Try and keep below 25. W on the keyboard is wheel brakes, and then Z and X will steer. Now as you take off, the flaps will come up automatically, so what you need to do is just push G on the keyboard. Initially you'll leave the nose wheel steering on just to make sure the plane's going in the right direction, and then as you're starting to move and take off, you'll hit S on the keyboard to turn it off. We're going along pretty well. Just keep an eye on your speed. You want to be below 25. I'm doing 21 at the moment. Just making it a little bit slower. If you do have rudder pedals, it'll be a lot easier. I do have rudder pedals, but I'm not using them just at the moment, so I'm just using the keyboard. If you're concerned about this warning up here, no rad, do not worry. That means that you have no radar on while you are wheels on the ground. As soon as you get up into the air, that warning will disappear. So if you see that warning, just ignore it. That warning should go once you're up in the air. The other reason you might have this is if you're in dogfight mode. But at the moment, we don't need to worry about that. And this warning will go once we get off up into the air. So I'm just braking a little bit. I'll try and level us up. Then we'll bring the throttle all the way back. And gently tap the wheel brakes. Done. So now we just want to bring it up to military power, or as much as it will hold with the wheel brakes. Release the wheel brakes, give it a little bit of power. Once our speed is just over 60, push S and you'll notice the nose wheel steering will go away. 130, and once we're around about 160 we can pull back on the throttle. So we're pulling back on the joystick. Push G on the keyboard to bring the gear up and you're away. That's the cold and dark start in the F-16. So this is the A-10C Warthog. We're going to do a cold and dark start with the Tobii Eye Tracker 5. I'll push by F1 on the keyboard. I'm just going to go down to here. You can see we can look around. I'm just going to go down to here. We're going to right click once on the battery, right click once on the inverter, right click once on the APU gen. Going to cross over to this side. We've got APU start, right click once. While we're over here, left click once for the ejection seat. We'll go up to here. We're also going to left click once here on the anti-skid, right click once on landing lights. We'll zoom in a little bit. We've got CRCU, right click once, JTRS, right click once, and IFFCC. Going to right click this one twice. Going to uncage this by just hovering above it and then using the mouse wheel. Going to turn on this display by right clicking twice here, and we're going to turn on this display by right clicking twice here. They're all on. Now we're just going to have a quick look at our displays. We should have the APU at 100 here. If it is, we're going to hold down right control and home and right alt and home. That'll move the two throttles forward. We can go back down to the back corner here on the right. Turn this all the way around, turn this one all the way around, or maybe not too much with the flood one, but the rest of them all the way around. So that one, and also the formation one. Now this anti-collision one won't move. You need to hold down left control and P on the keyboard, and then left click it once and you'll notice it'll go into that position. We'll also put the position light onto steady. So they're all done. This down here we've got CDU, right click once, EGI, right click once, and also the PTOT head, right click once. So they're all done. We're also going to right click, and right click, and then right click again. So this one is on standby. All the way back here in the back corner, we're going to put just the radio onto manual. There we go. And this is on 251 at the moment. You can put it on transmit and receive, but that's all we need for the moment. Now just over here we've got the yaw, so left click, and also the pitch, left click and left click. All of those are done now as well. Just up here we can click on CDU, and it's still in the bit test stage at the moment, so we'll let that go. We're just going to turn off this warning. We can see the canopy is unlocked. Now what we're looking for here is this number here to reach the number 4. At the moment it's 0.3. We can close the canopy with left control and C on the keyboard, and the canopy will close. To activate nose wheel steering, we're looking down here and you're pushing insert on the keyboard, and you'll notice it comes up here, steering engaged. Push insert again, nose wheel steering off, nose wheel steering on. So that's how we turn on nose wheel steering, and we know it is turned on once it shows that. If you do have weapons, you'll need to click here and load all, but on our loadout today we don't have many weapons, so we're just trying to do a cold and dark start. But normally if you had weapons, you'd left click once here and load all. You can also turn on these are related to the weapons. So we're just waiting for that second engine to start. We'll go check out how that's going. So we've got this engine on, and we've got this engine on. So now we can actually turn off our APUs. So this one here we can left click, we can jump over to here, and we can left click once there as well. So those APUs are off, but you'll notice our engine is still running and it's fine. So all that's done. We're just now waiting for this number here to get to 4. Our nose wheel steering is on, and we've got our display with all our HUD information. We can have a little look around the cockpit, but our cold and dark start is close to complete. .8 at the moment. We can see a few of our lights on. So now we're just waiting for this. We look down here and we can see waiting on a nav, and we can also see the EAC warning. We will solve that in just a moment. Just make sure that your oxygen supply is on. all of these should be in the up position. So this one should be on, this one should be on, this one should be on, and this one should be on. If you're having any trouble, please check that that is in the on position. Our ejection seat, of course, has been armed. So we'll just go back up to here. We're pretty close now at 3.3. You can have a little look around. I think if we push M, these will fold down, or we left click them in this case, and then we can fold them back like so. So we're at 3.6, 3.7, and then we'll taxi out and just show that we can take off. 3.8, 3.9, and then 4.0. So now you can see this is flashing. It's saying it's ready. So INS nav ready. That means it is now ready. So now we can push on nav. We can go down to here and we can click on E. We'll just zoom in so you can see it a little bit more. I'm going to click on EGI. And then we're going to go over to here. I'm just going to move that throttle tiny bit forward. You can see EIC. I'm going to click this button here. So that's forward. Now the autopilot will be functional and working. And that's all good. So now we're just going to give the plane a little bit of throttle. And we can start moving along. We can push W on the keyboard for braking. And then we can turn left and right just with Z and X. Like so. So we'll come over towards where our runway is. And show that we can get up into the sky. We don't have the flaps down at this stage, but you can push the flaps down just with F on the keyboard. Bring them up again with Control left shift and F, but we'll just put them down to there for the moment. And we'll head over towards the runway. We're just doing about 24 knots, but don't go too much faster than 25. This is just a single player server, so we don't need to look out for any planes at the moment. We'll level ourselves out and then hold the brakes. There we go, we're pretty much leveled up. We'll do the last look for our cockpit. So now I'm just going to throttle up. Once we take off, we just want to bring those flaps in and the gear in. Let go of the brakes. And we'll let our plane go along. We've got the nose wheel steering on. You can turn that off with insert. So now we're moving along a little bit. I'm just going to push insert. Take that nose wheel steering off. We can keep ourselves lined up just with Z and X on the keyboard, which controls our rudder. And we can begin to pull back at around about 160. And we're into the sky. Left shift and F to bring in the flaps, and G on the keyboard to bring in the gear. We can see the flaps are in and the gear is coming up and folded away. This is the F-18 and we're going to do a cold and dark start with the Tobii Eye Tracker 5. First thing we're going to do is go down to here, right click once on the battery. I'm going to go over to this side. We're going to right click once to put the APU on, right click once to put the engine crank onto the right. In the back here we've got OGS, right click once to put it into on. While we're also over here, we can release this. So we're going to hold down right shift and home on the keyboard, and that will move that forward. We can close the canopy, left control and C on the keyboard. And while we're doing that, we can hold down left mouse button above chip position to scroll that around, and above formation, scroll that around. Okay, the canopy is now closed. We'll start looking at some other things. Up here are our dials. Going to right click and right click to put it on today. Right click and right click to put it on today. Down here we've got a brightness switch. Hold down left mouse button, move it up and then let go. This one, brightness, hold down left mouse button, move it up and let go. I'm going to just hover it above this, and we're waiting for the engine crank to turn over. It's turned over, so we're going to hold down left mouse button once to now put it onto the left. So now that's going to do left. We also need to move this forward, so right alt and home on the keyboard. We'll move that forward, and now that's released. Down here we've got our flaps. We want to put this into half, so right click once and then it's on half. We also want to put our landing lights on taxi lights, so right click once, so that's now on as well. We got over here bingo. We can right click and right click a couple of times to set 200 bingo, and then just put this is our timer. We can also get rid of any warnings by clicking up here on the master caution. Down here we want to release this, so just hover above it, the left mouse button, and move the mouse back, and that will uncage that. Over here we've got FCS, but what we want to do first is unhook our wings. So right click and right click to put it onto spread, and then use the mouse wheel to scroll inwards. You notice the wings will come down. While we're looking at the external view, bring up the menu, press F8, F4 for wheel chocks, and wheel chock remove F2. It will just watch as they get removed because it only takes a moment. And you can see they're now gone. Now we're going to go down to here. We've got the ejection seat. We're going to left click that once. Now to remove your joystick, push the delete button and it will be gone. I'm just going to put the dispenser onto on. We're then going to move this on all the way around to XMIT, and just down here we've got a button which says ALR-67 power. Left click that once so it's on. Now we're going to go down to here. We're going to have all these lights turned on, so hold down left mouse button, scroll it around, scroll it around, scroll it around. Also these two, scroll it around and scroll it around. We've got mode night. It's in the day mode at the moment. You'll notice this is white. If you want to make it green for some reason, you can right click it once and you'll notice it's now green. So that's done as well. Now down here we've got radar. We just want to change this to OPR, operational. And we're on a carrier, so we want to change this here for the INS to CV mode. Right click once to put it onto CV. Now we're going to go up to this FCS. Now left click once here on FCS-MC and you'll get to this screen. It should say P-bit go. Hover above this button, and what's going to happen is we're going to hold down Y on the keyboard, which is actually pushing this button down here. So if I have a look, and we'll have a look for you, notice as I push Y, this button moves. We're now holding that switch, but with our other hand we're now going to left click on this button here. So left click on this, and you'll notice it'll say in test, and if we have a look outside it'll start testing the plane. You can notice a few things moving. So that's all underway. Now we need to do a few other things. We've got bleed air over here. We're going to spin it all the way around, so right click, right click, right click and right click. Left click once and left click again. Now we're going to go over to here, click on menu, menu again. It's got FCS here, left click once, and we've got a whole bunch of X's. I'm going to go down to here, and it has reset. Left click once on reset, and then left click also on the rudder trim. If we go back, you'll notice they're all gone. Now it has 12 STAB. We want to change that to 16. It could be higher, it could be 18 if you have a lot of weight, but we don't. So we're just going to hold down right control and then full stop on the keyboard. And keep tapping the full stop. So you hold down right control and keep tapping the full stop. We want to make this number 16. You'll notice it's now 16 and that's all good. So it's still doing the INS. Now you'll be able to see the INS information down here, but we can't see it at the moment because we've got this map up. If you hold down this button here, so 1, 2, 3 down from the top, left click that once and then left click it again, You'll notice it'll get rid of the map and it'll bring us back to this. If you do want to bring the map up, left click and left click again, and it'll get the map back. Of course, to remove it, same thing, left clicking it twice. So we're looking at the important information down here. We're looking for the QUAL. This needs to count down closer to 1. It's going to take around about 8 minutes, so I'll let us watch the full 8 minutes so that you can see that I'm not skipping anything, and we will get the alignment done. So we'll just have a little look over all our controls. We've got the O-bogs on the on position. We had these two being reset. Engine crank is now in the off position, you'll notice. These two are forward position and the formation light is forward. Always make sure the flaps are in half for takeoff. We've got our taxi light on. It is in the middle of the day and we don't really need the taxi light on, so what we will do is we're just going to left click that once to put it into the off position for now. Now if we need to taxi, what we're going to do is we're going to hold down S on the keyboard. So if we have a look up here, we've got nose wheel steering. If we hold down S on the keyboard, you'll notice it will change to nose wheel steering high, so that means it can do a harder turn. And if you release S on the keyboard, it will just have nose wheel steering. To steer, you can use Z and X on the keyboard, or you can also use rudder pedals. All of our internal lights on. Once this process finishes in 8 minutes, what we're going to be doing is basically switching this switch here, CV, to nav. So we're going to right click and then right click again, so it's on nav. And that's what we're waiting for just at the moment. Up here we've got the head mounted display. You can hold down the left mouse button on it and scroll it all the way around. Now when you look away from the center, so say out here, you can notice we've got some information. Anywhere we're looking that's not central. So I'm going to turn that off at the moment, but if you do want it, it's available, and that is on the head mounted display. We've also of course got our information here. We can check our wings. We can check our other wings. You can also put the dispenser onto bypass. We're just waiting the 8 minutes at the moment. Now once we're got on to set ourselves up, we're going to have to go over to here, the launch bar, left click once to extend. Then we move forwards and it will lock us in, and then we're just going to move this up to 100. So we're going to do a takeoff without the afterburner, just 100 military power. And then to salute, we're holding down left control, left shift and S on the keyboard. So left control, left shift and S, and then that will launch us. But we need to make sure we're at that military power first before we request that. If you reset it, you'll notice that it will bring you back to 12. So always handy just to keep an eye on this so that you know if you've hit it an extra time, you've got it on 16. If you have the heavy load, try 18. So we'll just keep an eye on how it's going. We're at 5 minutes at the moment, down to 14, so we're almost there. You can see the green mode at the moment. We might turn it back to the day mode, so I'm just going to left click once and you'll notice it goes back to white. There would be other things you could normally set up, like the ILS and the TACAN. But we won't do that in this part of the video. We can look over thing, we can look down there, we can look down there, we can look over the edge a little bit, and we can look over that edge a little bit. If you do have a gen tyre warning, it means you have released the parking brake too soon. So you can clear it by left clicking and left clicking on this, but the way we have started, we don't have a gen tyre error. But if you ever do have that error, it's because you have released the parking brake. You need to keep the parking brake still set, and then you don't have that error. Just something that could come across and which could happen. You can also set these, of course, as you see fit. We're almost at 8 minutes now, so we've got about 30 seconds more, and then we will be able to go to the next step and start going towards the catapult. 7:35, 1.7. It will get to around about 0.6, and then there will be a word here which will say OK. OK will mean that the alignment is complete. So we're waiting for the OK symbol at the moment. I'll keep my eye on it so you can see it when it happens. So we've got 0.9. Should be getting OK around about 0.5. And there's the OK at 0.5. So we've got the OK. That means we can now go down to here. And we're going to switch this to nav. So right click and then right click again so it's on nav. And that's all done. So now we can start to taxi. Now we need to take off that parking brake. So we're going to left click and then it will release it. If you need to bring the parking brake out, you can. But we just want to leave it in at the moment with one left click. Now just give you plane a little bit of throttle. W on the keyboard will brake. And then Z and X will turn. And then S will allow it to do a much sharper turn. Only need to be about there, and then that will begin to get us ready. I'll bring the throttle all the way back. Push F1 on the keyboard. We're going to go down to here and we're going to extend it. So left click once. That'll bring this little bar here down. Then he's going to put another bar behind in place and then run off. And then this guy's going to signal to us to come forward. So he's saying come forward at the moment. So we're just going to give it a little bit of throttle. And this will go forward into that. It's clipped in place, so the plane won't go anywhere now. Now once you're clipped in, you can retract this. So you can right click now, and it'll be in retract mode. And so that's all fine. Now all we need to do is give ourselves 100. So we're going to go here. It can be about 90 if you want, but we're going to try and go up to around about 100. That will do. We've got 97. We've got the burners happening, but we're not in the afterburner. So we're doing a takeoff, which is not in the afterburner. Now all we need to do is hold down left control, left shift, and S on the keyboard. Then you'll notice these guys will start to do some different commands, and then it will launch us into the sky in just a moment. Next thing for us to do is to bring up our gear and our flaps, but we'll worry about that once we're in the sky. So G on the keyboard for the gear. And then we want to change this to auto run right click. And we'll just check that our gear is up. We're quite low, we're staying under 500. and we're moving along. And that's it. That's the cold and dark start. So we're going to do a cold and dark start in the JF-17 with the Tobii Eye Tracker 5. Let's get started. F1 on the keyboard. I'm going to look down here on the right hand side. I'm going to right click on battery, AC gen, right click, and DC gen, right click. Down here is a little button that says CMBT. Left click that once and it will highlight all of these. We're going to go down a little bit further. We're going to switch this here to norm, so that's on norm. Then we're going to cross over to the other side. We're going to left click once around here, so not the big white button, but just to the left of that in this space. Your cursor should go green, and left click that and it will release the throttle. Then we're going to go up to here, start pump, right click once, and engine control, ENGCTRL, right click that once. We've got G and D here and a little black button beneath it. Hold down the left mouse button on that and count to 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Once you've done that, let go. We're going to go up to here where it says EP1, left click that once, and if you can see this number moving, 5 to 6 to 7, we know the engine's on its way to being started. While we're starting, we can just make sure that it's in the park, and we'll go back down to here. Engine hydraulic, we're going to right click that once. Shars, we're going to right click that once. Over here, we're going to left click, right click twice until it is on TR plus G. This little here is for the oxygen. Hold down the left mouse button and rotate the mouse upwards and then let go of the mouse button and it will spin around. Down here we need to plug in two things, one left click and also down here left click as well. So this here and also this here, left click both of those. And then that is done. Over here is the ejection seat. We're going to left click that so that is armed. We're going to put the lights onto taxi, so right click that once and then that's done as well. Then we are going to go up to here, HUD control, left click this, move the mouse upwards and let go. Left click this one, brightness, move it upwards and let go. Skip this one, stand by, but the UFCP brightness, left click that one, move it up and let go. If you have any warnings, you can click up here just to get rid of them for the moment. Then we're going to go down to the very bottom right. These are all our internal lights and also our external lights. Hold down the left mouse button, move it around. Hold the left mouse button, move it around. Floodlight, you probably won't want up a lot, so just turn that one a little bit. Then I'm going to put on the anti-collision, I'm going to put it on flash, I'm going to put on brightness. I'm going to put on the external master to normal, and I'm just going to change this here so that it is on code 1. If we just quickly jump to the outside, you can see we've got some lights on, we've got our front lights on, we've also got some lights also on the other side. I'm going to push F1 on the keyboard and we can go and continue. Now what we're going to do is look at our I and S. So what we're going to do here is we're going to this button here and we're going to right click once to put it onto fast. Now you'll notice up here there's a bunch of information. What you can do in this plane is instead of having to manually fill it in, now you can push right shift and K to get that information. So all these numbers will be importing into here. You'll be clicking here and then typing in the number and then clicking here again to put it in. But an easier way is to bring up your menu, then push F8 and then you're going to F5 and then F1 and then F8 and then F6, and it will say there get parking cohorts. So if you watch this while I click it, I'll push F1. Now watch what will happen in a few moments. We've got 261019 here. Still got the canopy open, although this works even with the canopy closed. Now you can see it's entered all those numbers in for us. So even the 178 over here, we've got that. What we need to remember though is the heading 090. It will not do that automatically for us. So what we need to do next is we need to go to here, the screen, and there's a little arrow. We left click this once. This screen will be up automatically for you, so you don't need to click anything. Left click this once. Then we need to put in 090 because it needs 3 numbers. And then that's done. And then when this gets down the counter, it'll start to use this information to progress. So that's all good at the moment. If you need a flashlight, you can left click back here, and that will give you a flashlight which you can look around in the canopy with. And then to put it back, you just left click there. Very, very handy. Now we're going to close the canopy. So this is the canopy lever. We right click it once. Sorry, we left click it once. Canopy will come down a certain part of the way. And then we've got to left click it again to seal it. And so you can see now it's sealed. Down here in the middle it says the word remove. Left click that once to take that away. And you'll notice we don't have any warnings at the moment, so that's all good. But we're still not finished. So this here is going along with its process. But what we'll go and do next is we're just going to put in the data cartridge. So down here is the data cartridge. So we reset the data cartridge with anything we have by when we hit F8 and we hit F5 and then hit F1, we updated that data cartridge. But if we hit F8 and then we hit F6, remember that's where we get the parking coords for here. So that's where we got that from. But all we need to do now, because we've done all that process, is double left click here. So one left click will get us a cartridge, and the second left click will insert the cartridge. So we can see it slowly going in. And then we go up to the top left here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to click on the word all, and then we're going to go down to here and we're going to click on ENT, one left click, and it will slowly go through the process of installing all of those. Now because the INS is done, what we're essentially going to do is we're going to go over to here, we're going to right click once to put it onto nav mode. So that's now nav mode, and then this will progress to the next step. You can see now it says nav, INS nav, and that's all done there as well now. I'll just change this to EP2, and it's telling me now we've got a config problem. Now, so depending on your layout, if you had no weapons on the plane, by default, you don't need to do anything. But because we have something on the plane, we're going to show you what you need to do for that. Down here in the bottom left are two buttons. Now, if you've got an empty plane, you want both of them forward. If it's semi-heavy, you would be flicking this one down, and in this case we've got two fuel tanks on our plane, so we're considered quite heavy. So what we are going to do is we're going to right click this one and right click this one, and then we go back up to here and we see if there's any warning. If there's still a warning, it needs one of these two switches to be flicked a certain way to be matching it. But generally, if you're very heavy, both of these switches down. If you don't have anything on your plane, both switches up. And you will also need to do that mid-flight. So say if you dropped your bombs during the flight, it will then come up with a warning here during the flight, and to change that you would be asked to flick these two switches to bring it back down. So at the moment you put both on. If we then flew and took off and dropped everything, we'd then have to come back here and flick these two switches back up to the top. So you can see when I flick it back up to the top, that's the warning that we're looking for, the config one. And so I'll just go back down to here, flick these two switches down, and then we're ready and set with that as well. Now for nose wheel steering in this plane, we need to click on left control and D, and what we're looking for is a little symbol up here which says nose wheel steering. So left control and D, and you'll see it says NWS. That means nose wheel steering is armed. Then I'm going to go over to here. We've got the parking brake. I'm going to take the parking brake off with one left click of the mouse button. Our throttle's still all the way back, so the plane's not going to go anywhere, but we've got the parking brake off and we've got nose wheel steering turned on. So that's all good as well. We're just going to change this information now so we can give ourselves something more useful. I'm just going to put it on the HSD, and with this one we might change that as well. And we can choose something else. We might put our stores page there. And on this page we can look something else. The checklist page doesn't seem to have anything yet, but we can put it on the EFIS, and then we've got that information there as well. So we've got a little bit of information in front of us, and we can begin to move. So we're just going to give the plane a little bit of throttle, and then to move left and right we're just using X and Z on the keyboard. So X and Z. And bring ourselves over towards this runway. And we'll just show you that we can get into the sky with this cold and dark start. So I'm just going to hold the brakes here for a moment. We can have a quick look over our controls. Now I'm just going to bring ourselves down just a little bit so we can see all of this information a little bit better. That's a whole heap better. And then we can get ourselves ready to launch. We'll have a last look over the controls so you can see everything. Now again, I'm just looking around the cockpit with my eyes at the moment. I don't have track IR5, so you can see I'm able to look around quite easily. Let's give ourselves a little bit of throttle and then we'll begin to take off. Now just remember, we've still got that nose wheel steering on. So once the plane starts moving, we're going to take that nose wheel steering off with left control and D. We can see the plane going along. You can keep the plane steady on the runway just with Z and X. And once we get around 150, 160, we're just going to pull very gently back on the joystick and the plane will take off the ground. Push G on the keyboard to bring the gear in and you'll have no problem at all. There you go, that's the gear in and we are away. So that's the cold and dark start in the JF-17 with the Tobii Eye Tracker 5. Now we're in the AJS-37 Viggen and we're going to do a cold and dark start with the Tobii Eye Tracker 5. So let's push F1 and get into the cockpit. First thing we're going to do is look down here on the left hand side and we're going to look down here. We're going to click some buttons. We're going to left click this one, left click this one. Down here is generator, left click that one. Now just be careful with this button, we don't want to hit the TAN system one, we're interested in this button just below it. We need to click this button here, make sure you've got the correct one. Left click that, and then just next to the throttle is a little white lever, left click that once to unlock it. Here is a canopy lever, left click that once to get it closing. Look behind us and to the left and we can see a spot for a data cartridge, left click that once and it will insert the cartridge. Over here are our internal lights, left click here, move it down upwards and then let go. So here is a small wheel and a big wheel. Hold down the left mouse button, move the mouse upwards and then let go and it will spin around. Make sure you do all these three. So the small one and then this one has a small wheel above a big wheel. You just need to do both. Then we're going over to the other side. We're going to do the external lights. Left click once here, left click once here, and left click once there. Then we're going to go over to this side. We're going to switch this here to nav. So from BER to nav, right click once, and now it's on nav. And then we're going to go up to here. On the right hand side, we're going to turn on the oxygen air, left click once, and then that's on. Perfect timing, this is ready and waiting for us. We're going to switch this here from AKT to REF Lola. Left click once to do that. I'm going to change it from out to in by left clicking here. And then we're going to enter the number 9099, so we can push in the 9. But what we don't have is the 0. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The 0 is this button down here. So we need to left click that button here once. And then we're going to put in 99. Then we're going to go down to here where it says LSSKU. Left click that once. Go back up to here and just watch to see if it all goes to 0. It all goes to 0, then we can switch this from Lola to AKT POS with a right mouse button and then left click once here to change it to UT, out again. that is all done now as well. Now just over here is our parking brake. We can undo the parking brake by left clicking here once. Next thing we want to do is we want to get this radar display working. Over here we've got A0, A1 and A2. I'll show you in the controls. If you go under AJS-37 all and look for A1 mode, that is what we're looking for. We're looking for A1 mode, and we want to know what we've got set to that. So either on your joystick or your throttle or your keyboard, make sure you know what A1 mode is. That's the button I'm going to be clicking. And so we're going to click the A1 button and we'll watch this display here, and you can see it comes on, and now we've got our radar display. So that's all good as well. Now we're pretty much ready, but we just want to do a couple more things. Up here we've got our warning lights. We want to turn that off for the annoying sounds to get rid of them. So left click in the middle here and that will get rid of that. Up in the top left here we've got our ejection seat handle. Left click that once and then that's gone. Now we can jump into the external view and we can see we've got our plane. Now sometimes you won't have any symbology here until the plane starts moving. So just give the plane a little bit of throttle and you'll notice that will all come up by itself. Now to move in the plane we can push W on the keyboard for the brakes. We can also push Z and X on the keyboard to go right and left. So that will allow us to taxi around. We've got a couple of planes with some traffic here, so we're just going to follow them and then take off and show that we can get up and into the air. We'll have a little last look over our cockpit. We've turned on these external lights. And these are our internal lights. And that's all looking good. And we've got our radar display on and operational. Our engines are going, so we'll slowly get ourselves taxiing towards where we need to go. I'll just wait for these planes. That's the first plane going there. You can turn on this if you want with M on the keyboard. Or we'll just check what that is. Left Alt and M in this case, so I said M, but left Alt and M, so we'll just use left Alt and M, and we can see that comes on, and then turn it off again with the same button. I prefer to have it off. So we're just waiting for this plane to clear and then we'll have a go at taking off ourselves, and that will show us that we can get into the air with this cold and dark start. Just bring the plane to a stop. Let them clear. One last look over our cockpit. And then we're going to throttle up. You can keep the plane going straight with Z and X on the keyboard or your rudder pedals. You can pull back just gently on the joystick and push G on the keyboard. And we're away. So now we're going to do a cold and dark start in the Mirage 2000C with the Tobii Eye Tracker 5. I'm just going to first remove the wheel chocks, bring up the menu, F8, F4 and then F2. We'll just wait until they get removed. They're gone, so we're going to push on F1 on the keyboard to jump into the cockpit. You can see that we can look around. We'll zoom out slightly. So the first thing I'm going to do is just lean over here and left mouse button click on the parking brakes and pull that lever. Then I'm just going to go down to the back left here. I'm going to left click on the red switch here and left click again so it's in the up position on test. That'll help us a little bit later. Then we're going to go over to the battery. I'm going to left click once here to turn the battery on. Now we're going to do a bunch of switches. I'm going to right click here on this one. I'm going to right click here. I'm going to right click here. I'm going to right click here. And I'm going to right click here. We're going to do that switch. Now we've done 3 switches here we've got to do. So right click, and right click. If you hear a warning, we're just going to go up to the top left and left click on that, and then that's gone. And then just in the center here, we're going to right click once as well, just to move that into the center. Now we're going to look at the engine. So we're going to go down to the very bottom right. Just next to the engine are our interior lights, so we can turn all them on. So I'm just going to scroll it around, hold down the left mouse button, move the mouse up, and then let go. There's a little light circle and then a big circle, so you remember you can turn both of them. I'm going to turn that one, and then turn that one. And then I'm going to turn that one, and then I'm going to turn that one. So they're all done. So our engine controls are down here. What we're going to do is just right click. So I'm going to right click on this little button here behind the red. So I'm going to right click on that. I'm going to right click here once. I'm going to right click here once. I'm going to right click here once. This switch here I don't need to touch. What I do need to do is I left click here on the little switch. Not so much here, but just on the left. And you'll notice it will open up, and then I'm going to hold down the left mouse button on this button here just for about 1 or 2 seconds. You'll notice this will start moving. Now just rock the throttle forwards and backwards a little bit. So we're bringing it forwards and then bringing it back to idle again. We just want to rock that throttle slightly and it'll keep the number going up and the engine will keep starting. And that's all good. Now we're going to look at the INS. So what we're going to do is just make sure that this is on N, and then this one we need to move to VEI. So we're just right clicking this once, so it's down 1. Then we're going to go up to here. Now I can lock the screen for a little while because we're going to be looking at this for a little bit of time. So I'm just going to give us a view like that, and then I'm going to hold down right shift and K on the keyboard to bring up this menu. I'm going to drag it across to the left hand side to give us some room. You can use the bracket buttons to change the page. So use the brackets. I'm going to push right bracket and right bracket. And now we can see our latitude and longitude. Now we've got to put that information into here. What we're first going to do is we're going to change this switch by right clicking, right clicking, right clicking and right clicking. So it's on L/G. And then we're going to be changing this number up here. Now just to explain, the +1 changes this number, the +3 changes this number. So first we want to change this number here for the latitude. So I'm going to click +1 and you'll notice it'll get a whole bunch of dashes. Now we know it's north, so it's going to ask us what is it first. So we need to say, is it north or south? We can see 2 is next to north, so I'm going to click that button first. Then I've got to put in the number. So we've got 36, 13, and then 68. And then I click insert. So that one is now done. Now we need to do this one. So we've got to first click the +3, so it goes into a line of dashes. And then I'm going to click on west for 4, which we can see here. And then I'm going to put in the numbers. So 115, 02. You may have different numbers depending on where you're starting. 94. And then that number is all the way in. I'm going to click insert. Next, I'm going to just left click once here to put it on altitude and just check that we've got 564 and 564, so that's matching. If you do need to change it, you can click on the +3, enter the number, and then click insert. But we don't need to change it because it's already correct. So that's all good as well. We can now get rid of this by right shift and K. And then we can unlock our screen so that I can use the Tobii Eye Tracker once again. So you can see it's now got back to control and I can look around. We're going to now go over to switches down here. And we've got this here on IN. We want to change it to STS. So left click once, so it's on STS. This one we want to change to ALN align. So I'm just going to switch it around by right clicking until it's on ALN, short for align. Then we're going to go back up to this, and we'll just stop the screen again for a second. What you'll see is this flashing, ALN. That is good, that means everything's working. But what we need to do is we need to validate that that's what we want it to do. So this little button down here, which is in red with VAL on it, left click it once. And you'll notice this will start changing. What we're waiting for is this 100 number to get down to 0. Once it's down to 0, then that is ready for the next step. While we're waiting, we're going to go over to the left side. Now we set up this earlier. We're going to now take this off test mode. It should be green. We're going to left click once here on that, or right click on it, sorry, so turn it off the switch. You'll notice the light goes out, and then left click once to close the red cover. Then I'm going to go up to here. I'm just going to right click once on this, and then I'm going to go up to here. We've got a bunch of exterior lights here, so we're going to right click, right click, right click, and right click. And just up here I'm also going to right click and right click. Now here I'm going to left click, and this one also I'm going to right click once. Up here I'm now going to look at this. Now I'll try and explain it to you. If you look over here, we've got 3 warning lights. One of them is telling us our canopy is open, that's the P cab. The other one is telling us the parking brake is on, and this one is saying the configuration. So if you had a different configuration, you would be changing your switch, and you can see at the moment that's our configuration. What we need to change is this lever here. So what I'm going to do is go over here and I'm going to right click it so it's in the up position. So now if we go back over to here, you'll notice there's no CONF. If I go back over to here and I flick the switch, you'll notice it has CONF, short for configuration. And then if I right click here, it'll get rid of that. So depending on what your loadout is, I've only got that loadout, you may need to flick that switch and to get rid of that light. Now we can close our canopy. So we're going to do that. We're going to right click it once to bring it down to the first step. Then look up with this plane and you'll see there's a little yellow lever. Left click that to get that closed, and then seal it with another click with the left mouse button. And you can see now it's sealed and locked all the way. So that's good. Now while we've been doing all that, we can see here this is at 0. So we can go to the next step. We're going to go down to here, we're going to change this back to N. So we're going to right click on that. And then this one we're going to change all the way to nav. So right click, sorry, until we can get it onto NAV, and then that's it was all done. And you'll notice this is now going to move on to the next stage. We want to put on our lights here for our HUD, etc. So I'm going to left click once on this button, or right click on it, sorry, and you'll notice now I've got information up here. And this screen here, we need to go down to here on this switch and left click that once, and that gives us that. So it's this little button here for that. And notice that goes, it controls that one. And then this little switch down here will control this screen up here. And so there's those 2 things done for us as well. So now we can take our parking brake off by just going all the way over to here. We can lean over a little bit and we're going to left mouse button click on that. And then the parking brake is off and we're almost ready to taxi. We can just have a last look around. Our configuration is set. Our lights are on. And we're ready to taxi. Now, to taxi in this plane, we can first just give the plane a little bit of throttle. We've got the parking brake off, and we've also got the wheel chocks gone. To brake, we're just using W on the keyboard. In fact, I'm just going to check that control because it's very not responsive. Wheel brake, we don't have a wheel brake, so I'm going to make it W. And now you'll notice I've got a wheel brake. So now we'll just give it a little bit of throttle again. And then it should be Z and X on the keyboard. Now push S on the keyboard to give yourself nose wheel steering, and then Z and X will turn it around. So nose wheel steering is S on the keyboard, and then you can turn it around like so. We'll just have a little look at where we are and where we want to be. We're going to head over towards that direction. And then we'll demonstrate that we can get off and up into the air. So we're almost there. We'll just center it up onto the runway. And then we'll hold our brakes. Jump into our cockpit and we'll do a last look over. So we've got both of those switches off now. Our throttles, they're sitting on idle. You'll notice we've got no warning lights down here. There's no warning lights. And the parking brake, of course, is off. So now we can get ourselves ready. We've got all our display information that we need. So we're just going to throttle up and then take off. You can use the Z and X on the keyboard to keep it straight. You can also use your rudder pedals. Around about 160, we're going to pull back. And then we're just going to push G on the keyboard to bring the gear up. And you'll notice our plane is up into the sky. And we're away. So that's how we can do the cold and dark start in the Mirage 2000. Hi, so now we're going to show the F-16 and use a GBU 12 and a Mark 82. So this is the Mark 82 and on the other side we've got the GBU 12. We're just in a hot start. We'll show you everything that we do to deploy them. I'm just going to turn on these two switches. On the ground you wouldn't normally do this, but I'm going to turn on the master arm. I'm going to turn on the laser arm. Some other things I'm going to do is just change this mode up here to air to ground. And then I'm going to go to here, one left click, one left click. I'm going to go up to TGP. And you can see at the moment it says it is off. I'm going to go over to here. Left click and left click. We're going to go up to SMS and we're in this page here. It says not timed out. We're just waiting for that information. If you haven't got air to ground here, make sure you click on standby up in the top left. Once not timed out is gone, it means it's now warmed up and you can click air to ground and you'll get your image. To swap between the displays or make this one soy, your sensor of interest, all I'm going to be pushing is this button here. Display management switch down. So that's what I'll be pushing to make this soy in just a moment. But at the moment we're just looking at this screen. I'm going to change this here. I'll look and lean over. CCIP, we're going to be changing this to... Now if you're stuck on this screen, I should just explain. Click on INV up the top and it changes you to this. We want the GBU 12, so I'm going to left click once, now on GBU 12, and then up here I'm going to left click once and change it to CCRP. So now we've got GBU 12 in CCRP mode. This screen's all good. We're just waiting on this screen. It's still showing not timed out, but as soon as that's finished we'll be able to use that. And meanwhile we can get ourselves up and into the sky. We're pretty much okay. So I'm just going to use Z and X on the keyboard to keep ourselves straight. If you have no rad, that will disappear, that warning, as soon as you get up into the sky. So don't worry about that. That means it's not got it on while we've still got wheels on the ground. But our wheels are off the ground in just a second. So you'll notice as I pull back, wheels off the ground, the no rad disappears. So if you're wondering what's going on with that warning, that's what that is. As soon as your wheels off the ground, you'll be good. Now I'm going to turn out to around about 270. I've got some targets just to the north, very, very close. I've got a nice clear run to get into them because we're coming in off the ocean. We'll just slowly climb because we do want to climb. 280, 270 will do. We'll keep that climbing. Now down here it looks like it's got out of the not timed mode. That's finished for us. So it's not soy, so we're pushing that button which we had before, and you can notice now that's gone and we've got this up. We'll just keep climbing to get this to display what we want. I'm going to be clicking on the override button up here initially, which will give us a marker up here which I can then move on top of the target. Once I think it's over the general target area, I'll move down to here and I'll change it to narrow mode. I'll change this from wide to narrow, and then we'll try and zoom in. I'm trying to do as few steps as possible so that you can see just how easy it is to actually drop a GBU-12. Now as for the actual other buttons, the actual dropping of the bomb is done with this weapon release button, depress, and to fire the trigger for the laser we're using this button, the camera gun trigger, first detent / second detent button. I'm holding down that button basically all the way. So that's what I'm going to be using there. Still heading out around about 270, which is fine. This is set up ready for me. Now if I can't do it on the first pass, that's fine. We've only got 1 GBU-12 on us, so we haven't got a lot of chances to get this right. What I will do is just keep an eye on our altitude and our speed. Keep the altitude coming up. Speed can come back just slightly. $9,000. We'll just have a little look where we are. We're quite a way out. We've got the base all the way back there. So if nothing else, we'll just see if we can get the target lock on the general area at the moment. We may not do the full thing on this one run, but we'll see how we go. So we can see down there that that's where our area is. Of course, I'm using the Tobii Eye Tracker 5, so I'm just catching up where I am actually in space. And we're in the general area. So now I'm going to go and click override and override again. It gives me a cursor up here, which I can now move around. So I'm going to move that cursor down onto our target area, which I'm aware that it should be somewhere there. Then I'm going to go down to here and I'm going to click on the wide to narrow. Then I'm going to zoom around a little bit until I can find a target. So it looks like there's one there. I'm going to push now on the keyboard, this button, sorry, in the joystick. Target management switch up. Target management switch up is the next button I'm about to click. So if we go and click that, it says now we've got a point track on this target. So that's all good. We'll keep just ourselves lining ourselves up with this target. There it is. So I'm just going to fly myself nice and steady and level. We're sitting at about 12,000 at the moment. Now I'm going to hold down the trigger for the laser. And you'll notice just up here, it's firing the laser. So we've now got a laser on that spot. And then I'm going to hold down the bomb release button. Now I'm just holding down that trigger. To keep the laser on that target area. And turning slightly just to keep ourselves so we've got a view of the target. And we've hit that area, so as you can see. the target here that I've designated there. And now I'm just going to show you how you can use the Mark 82. I'm going to click here to change to the Mark 82. I'm going to change this from CCRP to CCIP. So lean over slightly, CCIP. And then we're going to do a manual bomb drop. So this one, all we have to do is look at this little marker down here, do a dive, put this marker on top of the target, and then we're pushing that bomb release, stall weapon release button. Again, the button I'm talking about is this one. Weapon release button depress. That's the one I'm going to be pushing in just a moment. This we don't have to worry about anymore. It's useful, but we don't have to worry about it particularly. So we can look over our shoulder a little bit. We'll head out this way just for a few moments, and then we'll head out to the ocean. Something like 270. Looks like we destroyed a target, so that was successful. The GBU-12. We did a successful bomb drop. It wasn't dead on target, but there was close enough to destroy him, which is all we were trying to achieve. So our targets are out there somewhere. If you're just practicing, doing something off the coast is a really good idea, I think, or recommended, because when you're coming in, you're not getting anything in the way. It's just you and the target in between. So you can sort of find where you need to go all the time. And if you have something, this is just a Syria map, if you have some sort of designation on the coastline that you can look for every time, that can help you find the target. It's just good for when you're practicing. So again, I'm in CCIP, Mark 82s, I'm just on single. This won't be as accurate because we've got to manually drop it. We'll try and bring my speed down just a little bit. We're at 10,000 at the moment. We'll keep coming out, but we'll be able to roll in pretty soon. Now a lot of people will do that upside down roll, see the target, then roll around and then bomb drop. I'm not going to do that. I'm just trying to demonstrate to you how we can do the Mark 82 drop though. So I'm going to bring my speed or my throttle back quite a lot. The target should be down there somewhere, if I'm lucky. And the bomb we're dropping off our plane, well, is this one down here. We've got to get back to where we are though. So we've got the target markers or the labels up at the moment. So it's going to drop the bomb here at the moment. So we don't quite need to dive just yet. We're at 5,000. And our targets are down there. So now you'll notice I'll enter my dive. I'll try and find another target. I just want to look behind me. And looks like we dropped the second bomb down there. So that's that second one now dropped. We'll just quickly circle around so we can see where it went. There should be two smoking little spots down there. And we'll come past, just give myself, yeah, and we destroyed the target. So even that second one that we just dropped in was on target, and we got two destroyed targets in just that one. So that's the Mark 82 demonstrated, and that's also, now one thing to keep in mind, you may need to use trim just to try and level your plane up once you're done, but that's our targets down there. We'll zoom in if we have to, but that's our two targets all burning down there. And that's all that. Okay, so I just want to show how you can set up an aircraft carrier with a TACAN and an ILS. And we'll go into the map and we'll show it working as well. So first I'm just going to find my aircraft carrier. So I've got an F-18 here at the moment on an aircraft carrier. I'm just going to left click that icon until I've got my George Washington. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to here and click on Advanced Waypoint Actions. In here, you'll notice it's got an activated TACAN. Now say we want to change this number, or we want to put in the TACAN itself. Just say this is not here at all. So I'll delete it, and then I'm going to click on Add. Then we're going to go on Perform Task. And I'm going to go down to here, or Perform Command, and I'm going to go down to here, where it says activate TACAN. Now in here I'm going to set my number, so in this case I'm going to make it TACAN 6, and we're going to set that to this unit number. So the unit name up here, Naval 2-1, we need to have also in here unit Naval 2-1. This name here must match this name here. That's very important. And then that's our TACAN done. So then to add our ACLS, we're just going into here, perform command, and then we're going to go down to activate ACLS. Now I'm just going to make this channel 6 as well, and then we'll show you how we put it into the ship in a moment. So I'm just going to change this also to Naval 2-1. We've got Naval 2-1. These two also need to match. So Naval 2-1 and Naval 2-1. The other thing we can change is just our frequency. So we might make it 128.0. And this is 128. And if you want to change the frequency, you're just changing this number here. So it's 128, and we can double check what it is by left clicking here. It's 6 for the TACAN, and it's 6 for the ACLS. So we've done that. I'm just going to go up to here and click on save. And then we're going to jump into the mission and we'll show you it working. So I'm going to click on our fly mission. I'll take you with me just to show you how easy it is to set up your own mission with an ACLS and a TACAN. It should be giving us a plane that will be in a hot start mode. We will drop a couple of weapons on it. We could have done that in the map mission editor, but it's not a big deal for us to do it here. So I'm going to drop a couple of Mark 82s on this APC tank that you can see in front of us at the moment. We'll just quickly jump to external view. I'm going to drop on some Mark 82 bombs on 3 and 7. I'll just put a fuel tank on in the middle, and that will be all I need. We can remove any extra pylons we don't need. And we'll click a different livery just for fun. And click OK. Now I'm just going to remove my wheel chocks, bring up the menu F4 and F2. And I'm just going to get rid of the labels for the moment. Now we can have a little look at our plane. I thought it was going to give us a parking hot start, but it hasn't. So we're going to do the cold and dark start quickly. You can see what's going on. I'm not going to worry too much about the INS because at the moment we don't need that. I just want to demonstrate the Mark 82s, and we don't need the INS for the Mark 82 bomb drop. We're also not going to need it for the landing. If you're using different weapons, then you would need to. Just get rid of that. And we're just waiting down here for this to flick over. I'll close our canopy. Should flick over any moment for the engine crank. There we go. Now we can do the left engine. Just going to go over to here for the bleed add to spin it around. Left click, left click. We're going to undo our wings. So just right click and then scroll that in. You can see they're coming out. I'm just going to go up to here. I'm going to do the bit test. And then I'm just going to go into my FCS and I'm going to clear all these X's by going down to here, reset, and click here. You'll see they're all gone. Just as soon as this testing is finished, I can then set it up. I'm just going to change this number down here to 16. So right control and full stop until that is 16. That is now 16. Can uncage this. And I'm mostly happy with how we are. So we're just going to give ourselves a little bit of throttle. We've got our two weapons on our plane now, the Mark 82 and the Mark 82. We can take off our parking brake. We can spin ourselves around with S on the keyboard, and also X and Z. Just some things, if you need to do air-to-air refueling, you're going down here and you're just extending the probe like so. That gives you your probe, and you can go back to here and then put the probe in as needed. We just want to stop the plane moving quickly, and then I'm going to do extend, so hopefully they'll clip me in. There we go, they've clipped us in and we're all good. I don't know if he's going to ask me to go forward, but who knows. Still wants me to go forward? Sure. There we go. I'll put our labels back on just for fun. So here's all ready for us down there. I'm going to change this just to the normal map. We've got our marker 82s on. Everything is mostly fine. Now I just want to quickly explain how we can set up the INS and the TACAM that we entered in the map before. If we go here and we click on INS, we want to then click on and the number that we set it to was 6, so we're going to change it to 6, and then we're going to click enter, and that's all. Now if you're wondering if it's working, just click something else like autopilot, go back to INS, it should say on, it should say 6. If it has that, it's working. Then we can go to TACAN. I'm going to click on TACAN down here. It's on X, transmit receive. So we need to click on. We need to put in 6, and then we click enter. And that's it. If you want to make sure it's working, click autopilot and then click TACAN. Now that's not everything. We need to do what's known as boxing the TACAN in our ALS. So you go down to this map here. If it's in this mode, just left click here so you can see what's going on. And you're clicking on the little button here next to ALS, so you click that and it'll be what's known as boxed. There's a little box around the word, and then click here on the TACAN, and then it's boxed as well. It'll give us our range. Obviously we're very close at the moment because we're sitting on top of the carrier, but that's everything that we need to know there. For the moment I'm just going to do in-flight alignment on the INS. I'll leave that over there for that, and we'll just take off and we'll get ourselves into the sky. Our weapons, we can do it on the ground. You wouldn't normally do this. I'm just going to put it onto ARM for the master. I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to click here again until we can get to stores. You'll see up here we've got 82B. I'm left clicking that once, and it'll give us all the information for what we've set up at the moment. So I'm going to do mode, CCIP, then I'm going to do a manual fuse, and we're going to do that on the nose. Then we can do E-fuse and we can do instant. So at the moment I've got CCIP, nose, instant, and it's a free fall drag. So that's everything there. We can step between them if we need to, but that's all good. We'll just get ourselves off the ground. This is how you're stepping between them. It's just got the same profile for both. Let's put ourselves in the sky. Now to take off this plane from the carrier, left control, left shift, and S on the keyboard, those 3 buttons. Left control, left shift, and S. And then you'll notice they'll begin their process. We just need to give ourselves some throttle. I'm going to put it up to around about 100. That will do. He's going to start the process for me. I can put this back because we really don't need that at the moment. And we've taken off smoothly. Just push G on the keyboard, bring your gear in, and then we'll go head off towards our target. Now to get into the mode where we can drop, we need to click one more button, and that's over here, the air to ground. And you'll notice now we've got some display information. Have a quick look at the map so we know what's going on. We're heading in the general direction we need. We're going to go down to here and hit these APCs. We've also got over here a bit of information. We'll turn it on to operational, just down here for the radar, which has now got this working. Just let my altitude go up slightly. We can check our angle that we'll need, or direction, around about 152. And we're about 155, so we're pretty okay at the moment. I've got a bingo fuel here, I'll just set it to 1000. We can put the flaps to auto, because we're up in the sky now. And we'll see if we can hit a couple of targets. Now to weapon release. The two buttons on my joystick are the gun triggers. This one, press to shoot, that's for the guns. And then also this button, the weapon release button, that's what they're called in the menus. So just down there, you can see it's our targets. And I can also look around here because we're using the Tobii Eye Tracker 5. So you can see I can look both ways. I can also look over my nose, I can look down there, whatever I need. Bring my throttle back just a little bit now, because I don't need it going so crazy. Again, we haven't got any labels up yet, but they'll probably pop up eventually as we get closer. So we're pretty close. We're about 6,400 at the moment. Now you could roll in like this, find the target, roll around, and then drop the bomb, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go straight in very easily. We want to make this nice and simple. So around about now, we're going to dive the nose down. We're looking at this here, and we need to put that above the target. When we're above the target, then we'll push the bomb release button. So like so. And we've dropped our bomb, or pickle. We can watch our bomb go in, and we just hit our target. So that's how we can hit a target. We'll come around and we'll do one more. We've only got one more bomb on our plane, as you can see. There's also the display telling us that we hit our target. So we'll head out just a little bit towards over the airport, and then we can come back in. We'll have a nice clear view. We could land on the airport, of course, but that wouldn't be fun and wouldn't make use of that ILS, or ICLS, I must say. ICLS. When it's a carry-out landing, it is ICLS, not ILS. It should be good to have another run at the moment. We'll just keep pulling it out just slightly over the airport. We can look over our shoulder, so you can see what I'm able to do with the Tobii Eye Tracker 5 here. Got to give myself a bit of throttle again. This plane is awfully good at going slow, but we don't want to go that slow. So I'll just let ourselves gain a little bit of altitude quickly. 2,000, 3,000. And then we can begin our dive. Here we go. Not happy with it. If you're not happy with something, just pull out and have another go. I've only got 2 bombs, so I'd like it to hit if possible. There we go, just 1 bomb still left on us, so we didn't drop anything. Just going to keep gaining a little bit more altitude again. Then we'll spin around. There we go, the targets are down there. And we're coming in, we're looking okay. And we destroyed another tank straight on. We can see the destroyed in the bottom right corner there. We'll just fly around and have a quick look for our canopy, but both targets have hit. We had 2 bombs and we hit both times. So that's the CCIP. That's how to do some basic bombing. You can see down there, we'll just have a look. You can see we've damaged 2 targets. What I will do is we're just going to click on here and I'm going to change this to my HUD information. Bring that gear out again. Just the speed now.
contact. Return free contact. Ready free contact. Cleared contact.
I just want to quickly show you all the controls that I have set up on my joystick. So the buttons I'm using are this: autopilot reference, nose wheel steering toggle. I have the wing sweep bomb mode. I have the trigger and trigger first detent. I've got the store release. I've got my trim down pitch, trim pitch up, trim roll left wing down, and trim roll wing down, right roll wing down. Then we've also got weapon selector up, weapon selector down, and I'm also using the weapon selector press. That's for going between the Sparrow and the Phoenix missile. Then I've also got wing sweep forward, wing sweep aft, the wing sweep auto mode, and then I also have target designate down, VSL low, target designate up, VSL high, and also target designate forward, PAL. Target designate forward, PAL. So that's all the controls I had set to my joystick. So this part of the video is designed as a refresher course on the F-14. If you haven't used the F-14 in a while, you may find this helpful. Let's jump in the cockpit. First, I'm just going to look at the briefing. You can see here we've got channel 271, TACAN 71, and ICLS 7. So how do we put that into the plane? Well, the ICLS is down here. So we need to switch this around until it says 7. And then make sure that you've got the power switch to on. The other thing to do is make sure you go up here, switch on ILS and ILS to make sure that is turned on. And down the middle here, we can get this ready with AWL, and we can click this ready with landing. So then we've got most of that information up and ready to go. Now if we want to do automatic carrier landing, it's a little bit different. We're going to left click here to make sure it's on ACL, left click here to make sure it's on ACL. Make sure this is on landing and make sure this is on AWL. This won't make any difference to us. What will make a difference and what we must remember is over here. So back here we've got the autopilot. We need to make sure that this is on ACL. That is on ACL, and over here this must be on engage. So engage and ACL. This is really, really important to remember. Then also keep in mind you've got the throttle control here to turn it to auto. It'll only enable once you've got your gear and your hook down, but that is also something that you can use when you're doing the automatic carrier landing. The other thing I just want to mention is this information here you can bring up. So if I go to TID and then we jump back to the Rio, what we do is we go back to here and we change this all the way around to DL. You'll notice there's an option here, TID AVIA, left click that once, it'll flash for a little bit. You'll notice some information will come up here in a moment. And you can see this now, and now if I go down to here, next to it is AVIA ACLS, click that, and you've now got some information for your ILS landing. If we jump in the front seat, we can see that information is also shared here. So that's very useful as well. Now we haven't got the full information because we need Jester to go to the data link, and you want to set radio mode to tactical data link system, and then you also want to go to the data link, set radio host, and then in this case it's going to be our aircraft carrier. So make sure you set it to the aircraft carrier you intend to land at, and he'll go and get that information. So we'll let him get busy with that. As for here, just AWL, make sure you're on landing and make sure you're on AWL. Now you can see we've got that information here, so he's gone and tuned that in. You can also do it manually yourself if you look down here. This is the area where you're going to be putting in that information. And to get that information, you're holding down right shift and K, and then you can get all the information out of here for your carrier or anything else. Other thing we just want to mention, we'll go into the front seat. We'll just do this for the front seat. For the TACAN, how to change your TACAN. So back here is where we've got our TACAN. Just remember, this one here, the big number, only changes to 1. So see how it's just changing to 1. If you want to change the 7, there's a little clicker down here. So 1 click here and 1 click here. That will change it to 7. And then in this case we want 71 because that's what our briefing indicated. We want it on transmit receive, so make sure it's on transmit receive. And also make sure this is the X and Y, so that's for if you're doing air-to-air refueling, and then that's if you are doing a carrier landing on the X. The other thing to make sure, that's not everything, this here has to be on PLT. If it is on NFO, it is being controlled by the Rio. So we want to get control of it and we want this number to be active. Left click here once and then that will give you the pilot control. So that's just another thing to remember. We've got a few bombs on board. Just the other thing, if you're going to do air-to-air refueling, you're looking back here. This is the probe switch. So you're just right clicking twice and you'll see that our probe comes out. Then of course you can contact the carrier and do everything you need to do, but we're just going to put the probe back in, left click and it will retard it and bring it all the way back in. So that's where air-to-air refueling is. Now the other thing is our radio. We had a number of 271, so in this case we'd go down to here and we're just going to change it. So we've got to turn it on first. I'm going to put it onto manual. We've now got a number, and then I'm just going to change this to 71. I'm just right clicking until I can get up to 71. We've got 271 and we're all good to go there. So this is all set up at the moment for an automatic carrier landing. That looks all okay, and even this over here is okay. That's on engage, and that's on automatic carrier landing. So we'll just drop some bombs, we'll fire some missiles, and then we will come back to the carrier and land. As for the missiles and guns, to fire them, we need to bring up our joystick, and we're basically sliding this around. So you need to know what controls you've set for this, but you can move it to guns, you can move it to Sidewinder, and then Sparrow, and then you push it in for the changing between the two. I'll just put it on air-to-air mode quickly. So we can see at the moment crossfire because we're on the aircraft carrier, but normally if we went down we've got our guns, and then we'd be able to fire our Sidewinder, our Sparrow, and also our Phoenix. Now if you're just wanting to fire it just for the sake of firing, you don't have a target lock, the Sidewinder will fire, the guns will fire, but these two won't, the Sparrow and also the Phoenix. If you want to just fire those two without a target lock, what you can do is, well, first you want to make sure these two are on, so missile prepped on and on. But what you can do is you can left click here once. Once this is being lifted up, you can then fire without a target lock. So you'll be able to fire that Sparrow off and also the Phoenix missile, and then you can just close it when you're finished. If you're just wanting to see yourself be able to fire it, you can just lift that and then you can do that. So we'll also drop the few bombs that we've got on board. We should be able to see them towards the rear. So we'll drop some of those bombs. The bomb information is all over here. So at the moment it's on pilot mode. We can change it to manual. We'll just leave it on instant. This is for whether single or pairs, and single or ripple. What we've got down here, we're just going to change the interval down to 2, and we'll just change the quantity down to 2 because we can. Now air to gun, this thing, if you're in bomb mode and you still want to be able to shoot the gun, you won't see the HUD display indicating where the gun's going to shoot. But what you can do is you can put it onto gun mix and it will still shoot the gun anyway. If you want to turn that off, you put it onto off and it won't accidentally shoot the gun while you're dropping bombs. So that's what that is for. But otherwise these are the two delivery modes, ripple and also singles or pairs. And that's mostly it. We've got target mode is probably the main thing you're going to use, but just for our demonstration we are going to use it on manual. And you can see here if we zoom in, Mark 82L. If you're not sure what you got, you can bring up Jester and go and ask him what do you have on board. So you'll go select ordnance and now you can see Mark 82 times 6. The other cool thing about Jester is if we bring him up and we go down to air to ground weapons, if you look in the middle here, it'll tell you what the current mode is. So it's on manual, single, nose and tail, step with MK82L. So this will always tell you what the settings are that you've got currently selected. And that's what we're seeing back here. Then that's where we're changing all the armaments and bomb information. But if you don't want to do it here, you can also do it with gesture. Now to actually, if you're not dropping them and you're wondering what's going on, these need to be activated for the stations. You can just activate all of them and then you're sure that they're going to drop. So I'm just going to activate them all like so. Just be aware this one and also this one need 2 clicks. So 1 click, I'll just show you. It's on the very bottom, 1 click up and then 1 click up. These two don't, they just need the 1 click. So that means they're all now active. When it's in the up position, it's active. When it's in the down position, it's not active. So there's that as well. Okay, cool. So now let's just take off. We'll try and drop bombs and we'll just put this back to off mode. So if it's not dropping bombs, this needs to be in off mode. Just be aware of that. So that's now in off mode. That's all good. We'll put ourselves back into just takeoff mode for the moment. That'll do. Takeoff will do great. And that's in off mode. If you want to get rid of the joystick, push backspace on the keyboard and it gets rid of the joystick. So there's that. If for some reason you need to change this color, left click in the middle, it goes red. And up here, if you want to change that to red, you can just pull this lever here. And you'll notice it now goes red if the daylight in the game is more suitable to that color. Excellent. So we'll just take off. Let's get ourselves going. To take off on the carrier, we're just going to do left shift and U on the keyboard. Left shift and U, we can see we've done the salute. And then if we look down there, we can see these guys all having a look at us. One thing it wants us to do is just get our engine up, which is very good of it because I wouldn't want to launch without that engine up. He's happy now, it's high enough and it's going to launch me. I don't have to salute again. Launched, left shift and F on the keyboard and then G on the keyboard to bring the gear in. That'll bring the flaps in and the gear in. Excellent, that's done. So first we're just going to fire off our missiles. So I'm going to change down here to air mode. And then I'm going to change this to Sidewinder, or we can go up to guns quickly. So there's our guns. Now we've got to set the master arm, right click and right click. And then to fire the guns, all we need to now do is shoot with the trigger. Now you see the gun rate here, well that's on high, you can set it to high or low. I'm just going to leave it on high and fire, and you can see it's firing the guns. I'll just show you from the external view. So that's that done. Now we're just going to show the Sidewinder. So we're just swapping this down to up to Sidewinder. This one we don't need to pick this up, it'll fire. If it has a signal obviously it's going to actually hit a target, but we're just going to fire it loosely into the sky. So fire, and then we'll show it coming off the rail from outside. There we go. And we've got the smoke trail. So that's how we fire these. But if you're just wanting to fire your Sparrow, nothing will happen. You can hold down this trigger and you're like, nothing's happening. So if you lift this, well, one, you can go and get a target lock. So you can go and do a scan like so, get a target lock, and then it will hit that target. With the Sparrow, you have to keep target lock, otherwise it will miss. With the Phoenix, you don't. So with the Phoenix you can lose target lock and it will then go on and try and find it itself if you lose lock or you need to move somewhere else. So that's the big advantage of the Phoenix. With the Sparrow you won't be able to do that, but if you just want to fire this off just to have a look at it, lift this up with the left mouse button. Now that's up, the master arm's on, all you need to do is pull the trigger. So if I pull the trigger, you can see it's gone down one Sparrow. And you can see the missile leaving our plane, and we'll just try and show you from an external view. I'm going to fire it again. It drops it, and then it fires. So now we've got the same just with the Phoenix. So I'm just going to change between the Phoenix and the Sparrow. To do that, and I'll go into the controls in a second. we're pushing this button, weapon selector press. Okay, so if I go and push weapon selector press, it'll change to the Phoenix. And now, obviously if you had a target lock, it would be a lot better. The pilot's a little bit busy here. I'll just bring our throttle back a little bit. So I'm just going to pull the trigger, and then this number will go down. And again, we'll just show it from the external view. I'm going to fire our last one. And away that missile goes. So now we're just going to change to bomb mode, so air to ground. We've got to change this here all the way to off. So swap this all the way into the off position. And then you can go and have a look at obviously what options you've got set up. So I've just got it on manual mode, instant. We'll leave it on single. All that's fine, and these are all armed. So that's all good. We'll go and see if we can have a little look at a plane from the outside. We're in amongst the clouds here, but that's okay. So we can see all our bombs just underneath our plane. We're going to drop them. So all I'm holding down here for this, which is the weapon release button, is this button. It's called store release. So you're looking up for store release. So if I go and hold down store release, you'll notice not a lot happened. Actually, I'm just going to close this quickly. And we're going to turn that off. We'll just go back to here again. I think everything's okay. And we are also on air to ground. Yes. This is on. We'll go back to external, and you can see they're now dropping. So that's how we can drop our bombs. We could also put it into pilot mode, of course. We'll just see if it drops there. So I'm just using manual to get them off the plane, if you're wondering. But with these two, you'll need to set it up. So say you had target mode, you've now got a little signal here, which you can now move up and down. And then once you found a location on the ground you want, you just right click or depress. So we'll show you what controls to do that, so you can understand. On the joystick, we're pushing this target designate forward or PAL button. The other two buttons are target designate down, VS low, and target designate up, VSL high. So they're the three buttons that you would be using to move this up and down. Then you can target designate something on the ground, and it'll just maintain that location for you. And then you can fly over holding down the bomb button, and then you can drop. But for the moment, we'll just get rid of our bombs, and then we'll go do a carry-out landing. So I am going to just drop it back to manual mode. Single. The gun we can definitely have off. All of this seems still to be active. That's good. This here is on air to ground. The trigger's on. We can drop that one, and we can drop that one. So now we can go off and do our carrier landing, which is what we're really wanting to show. We'll have a little look at where we are on the map. We're way out here. We want to go down here somewhere, so we'll turn left a little bit. And we'll cheat a little bit if we can, to give ourselves a direction. About 93, 92 is what we would want. So there's 90, and we can go straight for a little while with that. Now let's get ourselves ready for landing. We're going to go down to here, just change this to landing mode. We've got ACL. This is on AWL. We'll go over to here. Just make sure this is still on ACL and that is in the engage mode. Well, a little bit later we'll be switching this up to auto mode for the throttle. Putting on all auto, not manual or boost, we're changing it to auto. To do that, you need to make sure that it's not in idle. Your throttle does have to be out of idle, otherwise this will not engage. So that's just another thing to be aware of. I'm going to bring up this display again if I can get Jester to help me. So I'm just going to go and click here. Wait for this to click a few times. It stops, and then click here, and then we've got some information here for us, which we will also see over here. So we've got that. I'm going to get rid of my joystick now because I no longer need that. We'll just have a little look at our altitude and things like that. We definitely want to drop altitude, so we're going to push down on the joystick and bring our throttle backwards. We've still got our wings out. Normally, of course, we'll put it into bomb wing mode when you're dropping bombs, but we're just demonstrating how to drop them. Not actually hitting any targets. This again, of course, is not needed for it's needed for ILS, but it's not needed for ACL. We've got our mode here setting, so we can make sure that we can talk to our carrier if we want to. I can do air traffic control, F4 and F inbound. I don't know if we'll do a full real landing, but we might do something similar to that. We'll see how we go. So our altitude now is around about 3,000. We can stop there. That's for sure. We're at the right altitude out here at about 4,000. I'll keep heading in this direction. We'll have to turn left soon. Give ourselves just a little bit of throttle. So first we're just going to go alongside the carrier until we can get Charlie. We can see our information down there as well. We can now see this information come up, so if it's not coming up, just recycle this. We've got to go up a little bit, I think. What is our altitude? 3,000. And then we'll go left a little bit in a moment. Can't see anything but the sun at the moment. We can put our hook down if we want, that won't do any harm. We won't forget. Now what's good about this is you'll see this start to come across quicker than you'll see this come across. So if you're watching this will really help to keep an idea on when you need to start turning left. And it's a lot quicker than this as well. Just sitting on 5,000, fairly quick still. That's okay for the moment. It should begin to start turning. I'm going to slightly begin the turn. Just on 5,000. We're just a little touch below where it thinks we should be, this far out. So I'm just watching this to see when it starts moving over. Somewhere around about here it will happen. Our fuel is super high. We could dump fuel, but we should be fine. Going to begin to turn left a little more. And you can see now this is moving along, but this hasn't moved. So this one here is moving along. And this, we know this is going to move very soon. So it just gives us that little bit of warning. We're already in the turn. And here we go. So now we'll try and catch it. Just at 5.7 at the moment. And now we're about dead on. If we zoom in, so we'll bring our gear down. And then we can go over to here and we can flick this. We should go around and then come back down and land, but I'm just wanting to go straight in at the moment. And we're just following this information here. We're also looking at these lights here. Still a little way out because it's only showing voice. We're just a little bit below the glide slope at the moment for this far out, but we are on speed. That glide slope will come down to us. .2. We're going to have to go hard left, I'm pretty certain. There we go. Now we're catching a glide slope. We're just manually flying at the moment. This is not using the automatic carrier landing. We can now see some information down here. Waiting for the next check. And we can click nose wheel steering. So I've clicked the nose wheel steering button now. We've got flaps down. Not yet, we're going to put the flaps down. We've got a hook down and we've got a gear down. And all we did was to hit the nose wheel steering button at this point. And we can see ourselves coming in now. We can do Tomcat ball. And of course at the end of this we can look at how we did by looking in here at this page. Just using Shift K to bring up that information. We do have a lot of fuel, but we'll see how we go. Bringing us in pretty good. Remember to hit full thrust when it hits the ground. Bring our flaps in, and then we can bring our wings in, and we'll slowly move forward. I'm not sure why we're not moving forward yet. I didn't give it quite enough thrust. I'll give it a little bit more thrust. And we can park the plane there. So I'm just going to bring that thrust back. I'm going to pull out our parking brake. I'm going to open the canopy. And that was really good to have this information available as well. So you'll know how to do that now. Now I just want to oversweep these wings. So I'm going to open up this. I'm just going to have to wait. There we go. And then pull it out, and it should, if we wait, do the oversweep. We'll leave the engine running while we do this. There we go, we've overswept the wings. And now we can just turn it off very quickly like this. This wouldn't be the official way, but I'm just going to click here and here. And then the systems will slowly shut down. We'll just keep the video going until all these systems come off. The only thing that seems to stay on is this one, but everything else should shut off at this point. So if you just wait long enough, it will all go off. You can turn it off manually if you want. You can go down here and put it back to off. Change all these as needed. But we're just waiting now for these to go out once the power on the plane dies out. You can see our back of our plane. And that's the F-14 Tomcat. We could put the wheel chocks on if we wanted, but we don't need to. We've got our parking brake on. This is on the Super Carrier. And you can see now it's gone out by itself. So this is out, all the rest of the lights are out. If we jump into the back, you'll notice this is still on. But otherwise, everything else is off. I hope you found that useful and helpful. That is the F-14 Tomcat.